AMD Ryzen 9 9900X early gaming tests leaked by YouTuber, slightly behind Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D, lower power and temperatures. AMD Ryzen 9 9900X early gaming tests leaked by YouTuber, slightly behind Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D, lower power and temperatures. The first gaming performance tests of AMD's Ryzen 9 9900X Zen 5" desktop CPU seem to have been leaked by an Italian YouTuber. AMD Ryzen 9 9900X Zen 5" vs Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D Zen 4" gaming benchmarks leak, last gen 3D V cache ahead of next gen chip. The benchmarks come from SideTech, an Italian YouTuber, who managed to acquire retail AMD Ryzen 9 9900X CPU ahead of launch. The YouTuber tested the chip on an GB X670A Aorus Elite X motherboard with the latest BIOS, a pair of DDR5 7200 memory, 2400 fabric clock, and compared it in various games against the Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D. AMD Ryzen 9000 Zen 5 desktop CPU prices spotted in new retail listing: 9900X €400, 9700X €318, 9600X €249. The AMD Ryzen 9 9900X 100,000,000,662 CPU is a 12-core and 24-thread variant. This chip has a base clock of 4.4 GHz and a boost clock of up to 5.6 GHz with a 76 MB cache. The interesting thing with this chip is that it has a TDP of 120 watts, much lower than the 170 watts of Ryzen 9 7900X chips. Once again, while the chip retains the same boost clock speed as the Ryzen 9 7900X, the base clock sees a -300 MHz reduction, which is once again to fit within the 120 watts power limit. But once again, the 12-core should be able to boast some nice multi-threaded capabilities. Coming to the performance figures, both the AMD Ryzen 9 9900X 12 cores and 5" and AMD Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D Zen 4" CPUs were tested in various titles at 2160p, 1440p and 1080p resolutions. The first game on the list is Alan Wake 2, where the new Zen 5 chip was slightly faster in FPS, but the Zen 4 3D V cache chip managed to surpass it in both average and lows. In Cities Skylines 2, the Zen 4 3D V cache chip managed a 23% lead in average FPS, while the 1% and 0.1% lows were similar. In Call of Duty Warzone 2, the Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D once again managed to outperform the Ryzen 9 9900X in average and lows and matched it in average FPS figures. Counter-Strike 2, a game that loves CPU performance, was once again led by the Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D, which dominated all three metrics, AVG/1%/0.1%. For Cyberpunk 2077, the Ryzen 9 9900X managed to be on par at 4K, which is a GPU limited scenario, but at lower 1440p and 1080p resolutions. The Zen 5 chip once again led it by double-digit uplifts. In Fortnite, we also see the 3D V cache CPU winning by a good margin. The differences are detailed below. AMD has officially stated that the Ryzen 7 9700X will be around 2% faster on average versus the Ryzen 7 7800 by 3D. The Ryzen 7 9700X has a lower TDP and lower clock rate than the 9900X, but it might be true since the game's selection is what matters the most. That just means that we have to see Zen 5 tested across a wider set of games to truly determine the gaming potential of these new chips. In terms of power figures, the CPU consumed 111 watts and an average of 102 watts while gaming during COD/CS2 and peaked out at 66°C temperatures, which are quite amazing numbers. In Cyberpunk, the temps did reach up to 85°C, which is still lower than the 90°C plus temps on the Ryzen 7000 CPU series, and power hit a peak of 144 watts. The lower power and temperature claim made by AMD is right on the spot. With that said, the AMD Ryzen 9 9900X should end up being a strong overall multi-threaded chip if priced right. AMD's Ryzen 9000s and 5" desktop CPUs will be available later this month on the 31st of July, so stay tuned for more information.